People won't buy paint online, can't really build a business through social media. You should be okay with making $50,000 a year. I mean, that was the craziest shit that I've ever heard in my life. And I did the exact opposite of that. Things took off.
This is Tony Piloseno, creator, color enthusiast, and the man behind Tonester Paints. During his studies at Ohio University, Tony picked up a job at Sherwin-Williams where he fell in love with the magic of mixing paints. Wanting to share his passion with the world, he started posting appetizing paint mixes on TikTok. Quickly, he stirred up millions of views for coloring outside the lines. A few misplaced customer complaints later, Tony was fired from Sherwin-Williams, even though he did everything off the clock and on his own dime. But Tony's passion for paint didn't fade. Instead, he doubled down on social media and his story went viral.
If I didn't put myself out there on camera and go on social media and make content, there would be no Tonester Paints.
But the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Tony's roller coaster was just warming up, and he shares what he's learned from those ups and downs on our series, Start From Scratch. Welcome to Start From Scratch. What you're about to hear is the audio experience version of our actual video episode, which you can find on the BrandCrumbs YouTube channel, where you can experience the story in its original edited format. You'll be hearing mostly the raw audio from our film shoot, which means you might notice some behind-the-scenes moments, like crew directions, interruptions, and maybe a phone ringing in the background. Enjoy.
My name is Tony Piloseno, and I am the owner and founder of Tonester Paints here in Orlando, Florida, and this is my Start From Scratch.
If you had to start your business from scratch tomorrow, what are the first 3 steps you'd take?
Oh.
Or what would you do differently?
3 steps?
First 3 things you would do.
First 3 things I would do.
After crying.
After crying. What would I do differently? The first thing that I would do would be to build a team to help things, I guess, run more efficiently, bounce ideas. I don't know, is that a good one? I definitely wish I had a team sooner, because for the first 2.5 years, I was doing everything by myself, literally everything. Which in a sense was good and bad. Obviously with a startup, you have no money and you can't really afford to pay that many other people to help out. But I think to move a business along faster, put ideas better into place, I would definitely want a small little team to get things moving faster early on. Another thing that I would do differently, have reliable manufacturers. Don't always count on the manufacturers, because once you do and you don't have a contingency of other people that you can rely on, or more options if you rely only on one manufacturer, that's a death wish and creates a lot of problems. So have multiple manufacturers, reliable manufacturers. And the third thing, it's hard because I don't think there's too many things that I do regret.
That's good.
Which is good. But to answer this question, there's got to be something. I guess on like a mental note would be careful on who you're taking advice and who has your best interests. I think early on, not really having a new career and being in college, really where everything first started, you really didn't know who was on your side and who wasn't. Because in the business world, there's a lot of competitors, people who don't really have your best interest in mind. So I would just say keep things tight, always focus on your own goal. There's gonna be a lot of people that tell you otherwise, things won't work, this is why you can't do certain stuff. But I think if you just have your own vision in mind and your own goals, anything's possible. I did have that issue early on, especially with the original partners that I had. It was always just like a lot of why you can't do certain things and a lot of no's. But once I had broken away from that, all the ideas that I had and all the things that I envisioned actually started working. So that would be the third thing.
It's a good segue, because I was going to ask you next, what's the most memorable piece of advice that you didn't follow?
There is one. Oh my God, this is hilarious. So I remember how exactly he put it, because this was a very, very significant conversation that I had that kind of levitated my business to where it's at today, a few years later, that I should go into a sales position at a paint company because people won't buy paint online And I was also told that social media is not a reality. From what I was told, you should be okay with making $50,000 a year at our sales position at the age of 21. You should be grateful, and that social media wasn't reality, and you can't really build a business through social media. That was told to me that January of 22, not even that long ago, man. And that was a real pivotal point. I do remember that conversation very vividly, because that was the craziest shit that I've ever heard in my life. To be honest, I was like completely like just putting a blanket on every idea, dream I had of what I was envisioning for Tonester Paints. And I did the exact opposite of that, focused more on the content. And then a few months later, things took off and actually started working. It was crazy.
What's a personal habit that contributes to your success? Something that you do daily or weekly, something personal that you do. And it could be something like health-wise, like you work out every day to make sure you stay well, you some supplements you take, you get 8 hours of sleep, you take notes, you send emails immediately, anything personal.
Yeah, so there's a few things. So I know a big thing is that I do the email thing is right. I do send emails. I try to respond to people to get business moving as fast as possible. I know for me, when I send emails or have questions, to suppliers or whoever I'm working with, I can't do the wait 3 days for an email back. Like, it's horrible. So I try to respond to people as quickly as I can. Another big thing that I tell my employees is getting up early. 5, 6 in the morning is usually when I get up. So I've come to learn that when things, just as a business owner, things get really hectic basically every day. And your mornings are your time where you can focus on specific tasks that are going to help your day become easier. So always getting up early. Getting up at 9 is not an option. Can't happen. Nothing would get done.
You stay up late?
Hell no. What's late?
That's a good point. 1 a.m.?
9? No, hell no.
I'm in bed by 9.
Dude, no. 8, 9. The other day I went to bed at 7:30.
No.
Got here at 5.
Jealous.
Yeah.
That sounds so good.
And how much did we get done that day? We got that was just yesterday, 55 orders out the door.
Just beat after work?
No, the day prior, went to bed at 7:30, not by choice. I was just tired. Got up at 5, got here, started making the paint. These guys came in and helped start boxing everything up. We got a shit ton of stuff done. It was amazing. So getting up early, yeah, that's non-negotiable for me.
What's one thing, a know-how or a mental one-upper that you think leads directly to success in business, or personally leads to your success besides waking up early?
So in the paint industry, right, I do have a handful of big competitors, right? Like, I'm basically fighting against Fortune 500 companies. There's some other small retailers who have like a similar process and niche that I have. But a secret that I've done, and obviously Tonester Paints being a business driven through social media, I'm always on social media creating content, engaging with my followers. I block competitors on social media. I don't want to see any of their shit. I don't want to see any of their content, their colors, their ideas, because that hinders my creative process and makes my content truly unique along with my products. So I block competitors. I don't want to see any of their stuff at any time, any point in the day when I'm trying to think of new videos. That makes Tonester Paints different than all of my competitors who are in my industry. That might be kind of harsh, but I don't want to see your stuff.
How important is putting yourself out there, like exposure and marketing?
Oh, it's the most important. Especially with Tonester Paints, the whole idea is that it's a humanized brand of paint, right? So there's a real person making these colors, developing these colors, real people that are shipping it out to you, and just helping you along with the process of choosing colors and painting. So if I don't, put myself out there and try to inspire people or give them advice or try to help them along with their projects, then the brand isn't what it's supposed to be. So that'd be very important.
How important is then video to your strategy, being on camera and filming your product and engaging with people on social?
If I didn't put myself out there on camera and go on social media and make content, there would be no marketing for Tonester Paints. That's the only thing I do.
What's your biggest failure
Biggest failure since I started the business?
or regret?
I think one thing that I've had a realization on, I found that there's two sides to this business that I've created, and that's the logistical, actual business side of things, how the business makes money, and then there's the art and the creative side of things. I definitely think that the art and the creative side of things, I've found my creative vision. I have a creative process that I really trust, and when I put out there, it really works. But on the business end of things, I would definitely say that I've had a tough time developing systems, and I kind of wish that I focus on that more early on, so my life today would be a lot easier with how things move along and get done here. So, it relieves a lot of like burnout and stuff like that.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Very systems, dude. I've come to learn that's all business is systems. You go to any business, restaurant, retail store, they all have systems. And that for me, like I said, if I would focus on that early on, would be a lot easier today. But there's still a lot of time to put those systems into place for sure.
And that's the one thing that they don't like to like slow down either.
No,
to
dude.
do. They're like, I'll get to it one day. I've noticed like every entrepreneur I talk to, it's always like I should have written it down earlier.
Exactly. And I've come to learn, I now write everything down as much as I possibly can, ideas, goals, use the notes app on my phone. If I would have done that earlier on, ideas don't go in and out of your mind like they should, or like how they do, I should say.
And don't. You gotta write it so then you can repeat it.
Exactly.
I think that's the secret too. Is
dude, every entrepreneurial book you read, it's all just writing everything down.
Thomas said something once that stuck with me. He said like 3 years ago on a podcast. The secret to success is the routine. That's where business is. The routine, and it's the hardest because you get bored, and but it's the most important one because if every meal, every paint gallon, every video, every podcast can have that level of 100%, you're golden.
Right.
But that is the hardest part, is to be able to keep it going.
Exactly. Well, the thing is, I now have 2 employees, and I didn't never realize how important that stuff was until they came in, and they had no idea what to do because I was just kind of ballparking it every day, and there was no like set way to do things. So it's definitely a learning curve, that's for sure. We're definitely in that point in the business where we're developing those routines and systems because they are important.
It's the least romantic part.
It sucks. It's not fun, but in the long run, when everyone's on the same page and you don't have so many constant worries about if, quality control is going to be okay, if every gallon is going to be the same, in the long term, it will be way less stressful, for sure.
People would see you now after the pandemic and after your Sherwin-Williams gig, right? That's where you were? Yeah. Sherwin-Williams? They see you with millions of followers, millions of likes, comments, and consistently selling, right?
Yeah.
They might look at you and say, man, like, Tony's got it figured out. Right? Would you agree or disagree?
No. I would not say I have anything figured out yet. I think building a brand that is recognizable would be the ultimate goal, and I don't think that we're really anywhere there yet. And it goes back to the previous question, like, what we do every day is not easy. I have to be here and work and slowly but surely figure out ways to improve, my personal life through my business, if you know what I mean. Because in the past 2-3 years in the startup phase of a business, I have to be here. It's my constant thought, worries. So I would not say that I have it figured out yet, but I'm working on it.
Who would you say that you know personally that is a business owner or leader that has it figured out in your eyes? That you know personally?
That I know personally? So there's my friend's dad who lives in Washington, D.C. now. He, in the early 90s, developed an internet company similar to what Tonester Paints is, a retailer. Something having to do with data and software. So he went through the struggle of, same thing. Back in the early 90s, working in like a 10 by 10 office in Ohio, and then slowly growing it to be like a very valuable and successful company, and then ended up selling to the United States government. And that's where the real cheese is at. I always talk to him. He gives me advice, pointers, how I should do things. And then, I have people like Khalil's dad, my employee's dad, who more than willing to come in and help and give pointers just from an outside business owner perspective on how things can be improved. Yeah, those types of people are definitely important to have around, be having regular conversations with.
Is that who you call when you need to run an idea by or be talked down a mountain?
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, tell me about a time where one day it felt like everything was crashing down and you were a failure and the business is going to close, or the business is going to close, and then what happened next?
This actually was very recently. In July it was. So, obviously, you and I worked together on developing the Tonester Paints website and really putting a heavy emphasis on these peel and stick samples that I have made. It really helps the customer like see the color in their space. They're easy to remove. Very innovative in the paint industry rather than going to get color chips. You know, they were made with the actual paint and everything. So this was the time we just finished those videos that we put on the website, like talking about the peel and stick process. Then you order your paint. All awesome, right? Everything was super cool. And then I get an email from the manufacturer who makes those peel and stick samples literally the week that we finished those videos. And we had been waiting on a restock of our most popular colors like Storms and Paris Olive Black, which have been delayed for about a month at that point, and I thought they were going to be coming in super soon. And I get an email from the manufacturer that week saying that they're basically cutting me off. They don't have time to do my samples anymore because they have to focus on Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, Behr, all the big competitors, the big companies. They were so busy with their work they couldn't do mine. So that same day, just start researching and figuring out who else actually makes these kinds of samples. At that point, I was like, shit, dude, if we don't have these samples, this whole business is like at a standstill. So it was a tough few months, but we ended up finding another manufacturer in Europe who does the same sort of processes to make the samples. Went through the waiting period of getting our colors made, and we're still actually waiting on them to get here from Europe, but they should be here tomorrow. So that week where we finished the website talking about the peel and stick samples and how important they are to the process of buying Tonester Paints, and then getting an email that same week saying, yeah, we're not making them anymore for you, felt pretty bad. It was pretty crappy. So that would be the one instance I can think of for sure.
Did you learn the lesson of don't put all eggs in one basket?
That was the biggest lesson that I learned. And that goes back to the first question we talked about where, you know, mistakes being made and that you redo. Never rely on one supplier, one customer. Never rely on one solo entity for the success of your business.
So personal habits aside,
yeah,
how do you stay motivated? Like entrepreneurship and business ownership and like growing a business is a fucking roller coaster.
Yeah.
How do you stay on the roller coaster? How do you keep going?
So I remember having a conversation with my employees about this when we were actually heading back from a partnership deal from Miami. And I would say that the biggest motivation that keeps me going every day is the initial story of how Tonester Paints happened, getting fired from, you know, the biggest paint company in the world for having a new idea, and then, you know, getting to where I'm at today. I think just the idea of a big corporation had one point actually two big corporations told me at one point that my ideas and everything's not going to work, and tried hindering that from me accomplishing my goals and my aspirations and visions. I think keeping that in the back of my mind every day, I'm not going to say that I do it out of spite, but it's definitely a big factor in, you know, making sure I get up every day, getting work done, consistently getting work done, and making sure that, you know, I keep striving for the vision I have for the brand.
You think that's toxic?
Kind of, but I mean, you know, what other reason would there be to do it? You know, I mean, I don't have a family that depends on me, or, you know, kids or a wife or a girlfriend. I have to do it for myself. It is, in a sense, kind of toxic, but, you know, if I was just one day, none of that had ever happened, and like, I'm going to start a paint brand, and hopefully it works, you know, I don't think that the same success rate would have happened if I had that kind of kick in the ass that I needed in the beginning, and still kind of think about today. You guys think that's toxic?
I say it because I'm in the same boat as you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
My situation is a little different because I have wife and kids now. But when I started the company, I didn't.
Yeah.
And the wife and kids now, I think it's scarier because before I didn't want to fail.
Right.
I learned that failure motivates me. I don't want to fail.
Right.
I don't want to be the guy that failed.
Right.
I'm gonna go down swinging, right? No matter what, I'm gonna keep trying to go. Now I have the kids and I have my team that I need to make sure that they're good.
Yeah.
Right? Like we had a really rough summer.
Right.
And I did everything I could to make sure that they didn't feel it and my kids didn't feel it.
Right.
So I took on that burden. It was bad. It was toxic self-infliction.
Right.
But it just changed from more self-serving to team-serving, I guess, right? But I think it's harder that way. In the beginning, it's like if I fail, I only inflict damage on myself.
Right.
If I fail today, I inflict damage on a sea of people.
Exactly.
So like I think in entrepreneurship there's toxicity in some way.
Right.
Right. So you gotta like use it to fuel you.
Exactly.
So is it toxic? Yeah. But if you use it for the right purposes, it's good.
Exactly. I mean, like it could be considered toxic, like you said, but I mean, that's how shit gets done. That's how your goals get achieved. If you have like some sort of,
Conflict.
Exactly. It's literally any storybook that has ever been written. It's the exact same way. So
it's the hero's journey.
Exactly. We're on the same page.
How much to where you are right now today would you attribute to hard work, or would you attribute to being lucky, or both?
Oh, hard work, 100%. I don't believe that there's no luck without consistency and hard work. You do get lucky along the way at some points, but that luck would never happen if you weren't putting in the hours, the dedication, the sacrifices, and the hard work. So I put that 100 to 0 on the hard work versus luck, for sure.
At what point did you say that, you know what, this could be a business, I'm gonna do it?
Dude, the same thing. Vivid memory of how this happened. I remember I started posting. I was in school, junior in college, right before COVID hit, and I remember I was visiting my parents back home in Cleveland for the weekend or whatever, and we were talking about it. And this is where my TikTok account was picking up some views. Nothing crazy, like under 100K per video. Early TikTok. Like no one really knew anything about TikTok yet, and I also knew that I wanted to continue my career in the paint industry, and specifically at the company I was working for. And me being a marketing student, I had a light bulb go off in my head on the drive back home, literally as I was pulling out of my neighborhood, and just thought, yeah, this could definitely be used for business purposes. It's getting a lot of traffic. People are like looking at videos about paint, like, and colors, like who cares about that stuff? And I kind of figured out a way to get that attention through the content that I was making, and knew at that point as a marketing student, that's the best way to drive sales. Brand awareness is just through content views. So that was the point where that happened. The kind of, this could be used for business purposes.
What's the difference between someone who succeeds and someone who doesn't? Like, what's the difference between people who succeed and those who don't?
Quitting. Absolutely. I think the difference between successful people and the ones who aren't successful are the ones who did not quit, went through every hurdle that they could. There's always a way to get yourself out of a situation or like I said, a hurdle that you're having in business. There's always a way to figure it out, but you don't figure out if you just that day you're like, I can't do this anymore, I'm done, and you put that in your mind that you're quitting. I remember I heard this on a piece of content, I don't remember how long ago, but if you're ever as a business owner or you're striving for your success, and you're having doubts or you're thinking about giving up, I just heard the quote, just give it one more day, just keep going one more day, just let the next day play out and just keep going one day at a time, and eventually it always works itself out. There's definitely, especially as a new business owner and not really even having a career in a job or anything before that, there's always doubts, like, am I doing this right? Like, what if this happens? All these hypotheticals. But I just always remember to keep the one day at a time idea in my head and just don't quit. Because if you quit, that's when you fail.
Great one. I think Seth Rogen said that.
Did he?
Yeah, I heard the same one, and that's what kept me from
The one day
not
at a
quitting.
time?
Yeah, like the quitting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Don't quit.
it's the only thing.
It's like if you just keep going, and you'll end up successful.
Exactly.
Just don't quit.
And and then it goes back to the other question. If you don't quit, luck might strike you one day just from all your hard work and not giving up. And, you could do a complete 180 and now you're the talk of the town and, whatever you want it to happen will happen. So just don't fucking give up.
Can you tell me about a moment, pivotal decision that you made or occurred, or a light bulb that went off and then you acted on it, and that was what brought you to here where you are today? Like, for me, it was hiring.
Oh, really? Yeah.
As soon as I hired, we grew. Like, immediately.
Yeah.
Like, I was doing it solo. I can't afford anyone. I was like, I need help. I got sick. I need help. I hired one person, and I was like, oh, we can make more money.
Right.
Hired another person. Oh, we can make more money. We grew to 6, and we had our best year by 1,000%.
This actually happened. The same thing happened to me recently. Like, bringing on an employee to help. Obviously, you're worried like, oh, am I going to have enough money to pay them? But there's a direct correlation to if you add on employees and people who are helping out, the revenue goes up because you just get more stuff done. You can focus on sales and marketing more, and it's just a way to increase the revenue by paying someone to be here. But for me, there's a pivotal point. There's a few, but the one that stands out was remember earlier I was talking about that conversation where I was with a leader of a paint company, and he said, the social media thing's not reality. It's not really going to work. You can't buy paint online, or people won't buy paint online, basically trying to guide me into the corporate route again, which I did not want to do. I knew I didn't want to do. I remember sitting in the car after that meeting and was like, I got to turn up the content. I got to do something. And for about a month after that conversation, I started posting TikToks every day, trying to engage with my followers more, just become more of a personal brand on social media. That was like, this is going to be my only way out of the corporate route that I don't want to do. And then a month or two later, skyrocketed in sales that we had never even seen before. And that was the point that really pushed me out of the nest and kicked everything off for Tonester. So that was one, and then there was the one where I moved out of the old warehouse I was in, where I was in the back of a warehouse for another paint company running my stuff, and they were letting me do it there for free. And I just didn't like the environment there so much that I was like, I gotta find my own place to work, be creative, get shit done. And I was nervous. I'm like, oh, I was relying on the free rent, Now I'm going to have to pay $1,200 a month for a little small office space somewhere. And same thing. As soon as I moved out, started doing my own thing in my own space, revenue went up like crazy. Sales went crazy. So there was a direct correlation there as well.
I think it's putting your back against the wall.
Yeah.
You got to figure it out, and you're like, well, when you figure it out.
Yeah, if you don't give yourself a choice, that if you don't figure it out, like, I think that's where the best, first of all, creativity comes from, and the best business decisions come from as well.
All right, I got like 2 more for you.
Sure.
What makes the perfect gallon of paint? Perfect color.
So there's a specific process of colors or the specific way that I like to make colors and how they are unique to the Tonester Paints brand. So first of all, it's the amount of black pigment that is in the gallon of paint, depending how dark it's going to be. So I always add a lot of black pigment in there because I always like my dark, rich, moody colors. That's kind of like the staple of the brand and the ones that I like to make. Then you get into like the ink tones, right? So you can add like greens or magenta, blues to kind of give it that like inky feel to it, which I think looks really cool, especially for like the moody office space. But the secret to the gallon of paint being perfect is adding white, titanium white pigment, because it desaturates the color, doesn't make it as bright, and it makes it easier to like put on a wall. So it's not like too bright, and just kind of is a toned down version of the original color you were trying to make. Easier to decorate with, best color to make a room tasteful.
And then last question, what is the most surprising thing you learned about yourself throughout this entire Tonester Paint journey? Like for me, I realize I'm resilient.
Yeah.
Like, not because I want to, because I have to. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I can't quit. Sometimes I'm jealous of people that can just quit, but I can't.
I mean, I could put myself in that same boat, brother. I don't know what it's been throughout this Tonester Paints journey, like waking up every day, and like it really is as soon as you wake up, that's the first thing you think about. And, you know, how am I going to make this work? I guess resilience would be a big thing for me as well, because there's never really been a point where I've been like, oh, I'm just going to hang it up. Like, I don't feel like doing this anymore. There has not been a point where that's happened. And it's been over three and a half years, maybe even longer. Never happened. Which I didn't know about myself till doing the business, I guess, because, you know, I never really cared about the jobs that I was working at. I didn't really put in that much work. I was never great in school, and that's no sign of resilience. But as soon as the Tonester Paints thing happened, that whole thing changed, or it really came out of me, I guess is the best way to put it.
Who should we talk to next like this?
Here in Orlando?
Mm-hmm. That you want them to answer these questions and listen to it and watch it.
Trying to think of the business owners I know. I like Thomas. You guys doing it with him yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We do so much with him, so we're like saving him for later.
Yeah.
Do you admire Thomas?
Yeah. I think he's built some badass businesses. It was cool talking to him. Same kind of story, man. What was it? He was working he built a food truck without knowing how to cook. Like, that's crazy. And now he has like some of the most popular restaurants in Orlando. What about it? Who's the owner of, I don't know him personally, but I do think their brand is super, super sick. Over there in the East End Market.
Gideon's?
Not Gideon's, it's a clothing brand. It's like they have like the alligator stuff. You know what I'm talking about though, right? It's on that hat. Grab that hat that's on the end there. On the clothing rack.
To the left, right here. Thank you.
Freehand Goods. That is a cool brand. I like how, I don't know them personally or know the owner, but I think that they've built a really cool brand here in Orlando, because everyone knows them. Everyone talks about them, and you always see other people wearing their stuff. And I think that's the coolest part, is building a community around a brand and your products. So yeah, I think that'd be your next go-to, in my opinion.
These are the type of questions and stuff that I like to hear.
Yeah. It's very insightful, man. Just having the conversation about it. I mean, have you ever noticed that entrepreneurs, and I've been reading more books about entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who write them, it's all the same path, man. Different, different
if you take
industry.
out all the guts.
Yeah, it's all the same shit.
It's the same foundation.
Exactly.
They
same
found the
framework.
problem, they dealt with it, what I found is they keep solving problems to make it work. There's a book by Tim Ferriss. It's not like a traditional book. He has a podcast, and he interviews Mark Cuban, Jamie Foxx, Tony Robbins, all these different people. And the book is like a compilation, Tribe of Mentors.
Okay.
And in the book, each chapter, in the short chapters, is like the takeaways from his conversations. And it's like everything they learned. So it's like you learn from reading this book like 48 different lessons from these people who are super successful. And it's like all the same, like don't quit, just don't give up, one more day, just keep going, solve the problem, problem at a time. So that's my new mantra.
Yeah.
Is one problem at a time. Let's solve this problem and let's get to the next one.
Isn't it? It's revolutionary if you just have that mindset, because you can't fucking worry about everything all at one time. I know.
Can, and then, but
yeah, you can, but it doesn't work.
It's gonna just drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Start From Scratch audio experience. Don't forget to check out the video version on the BrandCrumbs YouTube channel, where you can experience the story in its originally intended format. Stay tuned for the next episode, where we'll bring you more inspiring stories of resilience.